So what is all about Z chart? Of course, this is a graphical representation that includes three aspects of a time series on the same graph. It's just a graphical representation. You're going to see that as we construct Z chart, of course, we are using graph paper. Okay, but on that graph paper, as we construct this Z chart, you will realize that we have three aspects that should be included. And at the end of it all, you will find that your chart takes the form of letter Z. That's why it is called Z chart. But this Z chart has three aspects. The first aspect is the bottom horizontal plot. This bottom horizontal plot is just the actual, represents the actual monthly output. It can be output, can be sales, or any other variable under consideration. So as we plot, you will find that, of course, when you look at Z, the way Z is written, of course, it has that horizontal line, okay? So that horizontal line will be representing our actual data. If you're looking at two periods, let's say 2017 and 2018, of course, we always look at the current period, and you will realize that that current period is the one that is normally appear on the horizontal plot. It's the one we will be relying on as our present actual information. Of course, the question may differ. Today, you may find that you're given a certain variable, let's say output, but in another question, you have a different variable, maybe sales or any other that may be given in the question. So just that you need to put it in your mind that this Z chart, the horizontal line represents your actual information. Okay, so as you plot, of course, you will be plotting your actual information against period, because we are talking about time series in this regard. So you'll find that either you are dealing with a number of months, or it can be number of days, or depending on how the question is phrased. Okay, so on a horizontal axis, you'll find that you have the time period. Then on the vertical axis, of course, you'll be having your data. So one of the aspects you'll be having on the vertical axis is your actual data. And another aspect that we have is diagonal plot. This diagonal plot, of course, when you look at Z, the way Z is written, it has that diagonal line. So that diagonal plot will always represent your cumulative total. It's the total output which has been achieved since the beginning of the year, and it shows the running total over time. If, let's say, January you had 100 as your output, in February you had 200 as your output, in March you had, let's say, 300 as your output, of course you will find that we will keep on accumulating to get what we call cumulative total. So that diagonal line represents the cumulative total to date. And examining this plot helps in understanding the overall trend and the accumulated performance over time. Then another line that we have is that top horizontal plot, or that top horizontal line. When you look at letter Z, it has that top line. So that top horizontal plot will always represent your moving annual totals. It helps in comparing current performance with the same period in the previous year. Of course, at the end of it all, you realize that when you're comparing your current year's performance with the previous year's total, it helps in assessing the growth or decline in the variable. And it provides insights into whether the current period is performing better or worse than the same period in the previous year. The fact that we are talking about moving annual total, you will realize that how we compute this will be a bit different, from cumulative total. Because with cumulative total, you just keep on one period at a go. But with moving annual total, it includes the word annual. So it means that you will be basically looking at the overall total of 12 months, as you will see how we can come up with moving annual total. So we have interpretation tips, of course. At the end of it all, once you come up with your Z chart, will you be in a position to interpret it? Because it is not all about, plotting, but you must be in a position to at least interpret your graph. Always remember that the goal is to understand the patterns, compare with what you have done before, find any strength, and think about things that might be influencing what you see in the chart. Of course, you are the analyst. You're interested to see, is there any change? If there is any change, what could be the reason why in a certain month you have a decrease, in another month you have a decrease? So at the end of it all, it is going to help you to make smarter decisions and solve problems with the new, and you solve problems when they arise. Okay. So as you interpret, you always look at your patterns, you look at the past data, you spot anomalies, then you may also consider external factors, areas where this Z chart can be applied, like in the sales and revenue tracking, production output. You are tracking daily or weekly or monthly production output to assess your productivity trends and cumulative performance. You can also apply Z chart to inventory management by simply analyzing your inventory levels over time. Levels. You may also use this Z chart in your website traffic and user engagement, financial performance, employee performance, energy consumption. So you can use Z chart in different areas. Risk management, you're just trying to track the key risk indicators over time to identify the potential risks and assess risk management strategies. Because at the end of it all, once you analyze that there is something wrong, you have to come up with the best strategy. So we have also some advantages or benefits of using this chart. It provides a clear and visual way to see how things are changing over time. It's like you're looking at the picture of how the numbers are doing, and can give you a clear view to understand. Because you're also going to identify trends, and you may start asking yourself why in this month you have a bigger number, in this month you have a decrease, And you will come up with various reasons, and at the end of it all, you come up with best strategies to overcome. Of course, you're also going to compare how you're doing now with how you did at the same time last year. This is especially comparing your moving annual totals with your period, of course. Basically, this point is talking about moving annual totals. It helps you understand if you're improving or if you're facing challenges. Among others, of course, as we said, by looking at your Z chart, you can make better decisions about what to do next. It helps you to focus on areas that need much attention. Okay, so there are many benefits. You can just look through. Of course, we have limitations of using this Z chart. Limited detail. This Z chart may not show you very detailed information about specific events or changes because it is more of the summary. You're playing with only figures and you need more information, of course. Sometimes as you, the analyst, sometimes you need much information, just not only looking at the quantitative data. Okay. And this chart assumes that the trend will continue in the same way, which may not always be the case in real life situations. It may capture short-term changes in the data because it focuses on cumulative details. It may not capture. So it is also one of the limitations. Also, this Z chart does not show what is happening, but it shows what is happening, but doesn't show why. You just see the lines moving up, down, but you don't know the reason. So you are the analyst, you may need additional information to understand the reasons behind trends, okay? Among others. So we are going to handle this question. We are going to handle two questions. And I believe at the end of it all, you will be in a position to answer any other question about Z chart. It's not hard area. All you need is to understand what do you need to come up with Z chart. This question one, they are telling us that the information on the monthly production figures, and these figures are in 1,000 for ABC Limited, are given in the following table. We are given months, we are given last year data, and we are also given current year production. And the question is, you construct a Z chart for this given data. So how are you going to actually construct your Z chart? Colleagues, as we construct Z chart, we look at three aspects. All you need is the current data. Like now, you ask yourself, what is your current data? Your current data is, of course, the one for the current year. That is number one. You will plot your current data against your period. And in this particular scenario, we are dealing with months. So it means that as you plot, the first aspect you need to look at is current data against your months. And once you plot that, you will find that you have a bottom horizontal plot. Because the way you hear the word Z, Z has a bottom line. It has upper line. It has also a diagonal. That bottom horizontal line, you will realize that you're going to come up with that bottom horizontal line by plotting your current data against months. Then that diagonal, because Z has a diagonal line. So to get that diagonal line, you will be plotting what we call cumulative totals against your periods. So it means that that is another aspect. Once you're done with actual data, you need a column for cumulative total. And what are you accumulating? Of course, we are going to be accumulating our current data. Then lastly, to get your top horizontal line, that upper line on Z, the way you see Z, Z has that top horizontal line. To get that top horizontal line, you will need what we call moving annual totals. So you will be plotting your moving annual totals against your periods. Okay, so let's before we plot, we have current data, we need cumulative totals, we also need moving annual totals. So how do you do that? How do you do that? Here we are. This is our data given in the question. And we need what we call cumulative, totals. We need cumulative totals. Then we need moving annual totals. So how do you get cumulative totals? Of course, as I said, we accumulate basing on our current data. So you will start with 14 because that is your first figure. Then get that 14, you add the next figure, 17. You get for March, you get 31, the previous figure plus the current, the figure for March. You keep on doing the same. Cumulative total for previous period plus what is the current figure for April, that is 18. You keep on adding up to December. Okay, that's how you get cumulative totals. And this last figure, when you add your column for current data, it should give you that last figure. As you can observe, if you realize that that last figure is different from this, you can actually mark yourself and say, I'm wrong. It means that just the error could be in addition. Then we need also moving annual totals. But how do you feel this? Because this one, moving annual totals, you see it include the word annual. You're looking at 12 months period. So what you will do is to first get the total for previous year of previous period. First sum up, get the total, because this total is a total for what? Is a total for 12 months. That is annual. Now, once you get this total, you're going to get that total 180, subtract the figure you had in the previous year, then add the current year's figure, which is 14. Maybe I can repeat again. To get this total, you're going to get 180, you subtract 180, you subtract the last year figure, which is 12, then plus the current year figure, which is 14. That will be your answer. How do you get the next figure? Now, the next figure, you're not going to rely on 180. No. This is now your current moving annual total. It's what you should rely on to get the next figure. So you're going to get this 182 minus what was the figure in Feb for last year, 11. Then add the current year's figure, which is 17. You do the same for March. You get 188. Subtract what was the figure in March for last year, 12. Then add what is the current figure in March, 15. You do the same for April. You get 191. You subtract the previous year data, then add the current year data. You keep on doing that. For May, it is 193. Then subtract the last year figure, then add the current year figure. You do that up to December. And if you realize that at the end this figure is not the same as this, you will mark yourself wrong. These figures must be the same. This one and this one must be the same, and it must be the same as this one. So that's how you actually come up with moving annual totals. Now, once you're done with moving annual totals, the next step is to plot. And when you're plotting, what do you need? One, of course, as I said, you need current actual data. You will plot your current actual data against your periods. And in this scenario, we are dealing with months. So once you plot, so it means that like you are going to get your graph book, put a vertical axis, a horizontal axis. Horizontal axis will be containing your periods, and in this case, you will be having your months on the horizontal axis. Then the vertical axis, you'll be having output. But you will realize that we have three aspects: current data. That's the first one we are plotting. You plot 14, and for January, you look for 14 on the vertical axis. Feb, you look for 17 on the vertical axis. March, you look for 15 on the vertical axis. April, you look for 18 on the vertical axis. You plot all the figures. Then at the end, you join using the line. You can join your points using join your points. Of course, you can use your ruler. From the first point to the last point. Once you're done, of course, you go ahead and look at the next aspect. This current data is going to give you the what we call bottom horizontal plot. The way you see the word Z has that bottom line. And to get that bottom line, you will just be plotting your current data against your period. Okay. So the next aspect is cumulative totals. And already we have our cumulative totals. So it means that for every period, for every month, you're going to be looking for the cumulative total. You also plot. January, you look for 50 on vertical axis. February, you look for 31 on vertical axis. March, you look for 46. You just be putting dots as we are going to see on the graph. Then at the end, you will join from the starting point to the last point using your ruler, of course, with a line. Okay? Have that diagonal line. To get that diagonal line, you will be plotting cumulative totals against months. Then the last aspect you need is cumulative annual totals. Of course, already we have a moving annual. The last aspect we need is moving annual totals, and already we have them. All we need is to plot moving annual totals against months. At the end of it, all what we get will be the top horizontal plot, because that Z letter has that top horizontal line. And to get that top horizontal line, you're just going to plot all your moving annual totals against the corresponding period. Okay, I hope that one is not hard. But before we look at the graph, we can again look at the next question. That's what I was trying to explain. You will read it through. When you're plotting, you need 3 aspects. And then this question number 2, you are going to do it as your assignment after handling the next question. So let's handle question 3. They are telling us that the following figures show the monthly number of new vehicles registered by URA in the years 2019-2020. So your current information for your current period is 2020, then the previous year is 2019. But the way data is given, you see the way this data is given is not like the way this data is given. They are telling us that construct a Z chart to display data for the year 2020. 10 marks. So just all you need is to rearrange your data in a column form and work like the way we said in the first question. So what are we going to do? Of course, this is our data given in the question, and you can just rearrange like this. You have months from January to December. You have 2019 and 2020. 2019 in January, you have 160. February, you have 120. then March you have 150, like that. The same applies for 2020. All you need is now to come up with your cumulative totals, and I said that you accumulate based on your current data. This is your first figure. You get this plus 130. Then next 400 plus 170. Then here you have 570 plus 140. You keep on adding up to the last figure. And this total, as I said, your last total should be the same as total for the current data, just to prove. But in the paper or in an exam, sometimes you don't have enough time to prove yourself. But if you have that time, you just get your calculator and see whether actually this figure is the same as this. If they are different, know that you have added wrongly. So next is to get moving annual totals, but recall I said to get moving annual totals, you need to first get the total for previous year. And how do you get total for previous year? You just sum up everything, you get your calculator and add everything. And that is my total for previous year. And once I get this total, what will happen is to get the first figure here, I'm going to get 1,680. I subtract what was the figure in 2019, 160. January, I had 160. What about currently? I add the current figure, which is 270. I repeat, you get your total here. You subtract this figure. In January, you had 160 in 2019. Then add, what is the figure in 2020? 270, and you will get that figure. Next, you get this. Now you don't base on this because you have new total. So you are going to base on this total to get the next. So you get 1,790. You subtract 120, then add 130. You do the same here. Then 1,800 minus 150 plus 170. You do the same here. 1,820 minus 140 plus 140. Next, you get 1,820 minus 130 plus of 140. You keep on doing the same. 1,840 minus 110 plus 120. You do the same up to the end. And I said this figure must be the same. This figure must be the same as this and must be the same as this. If your figures are different, know that you have added or subtracted wrongly. Are we together? So that's all you need. The next step is just to plot. And as you plot, of course, you have vertical axis and horizontal axis. So colleagues, as you plot, once you get your cumulative total, moving annual total, the next step is to plot. But as you plot, the first aspect, I said you just need to look at your current actual data. You plot those figures against your period, and that will give you the bottom horizontal plot. Then once you're done, join your lines. This is what I mean. Once you're done, this is the bottom horizontal plot I'm talking about. From this point, you will have something like this. And this is your current data against your months. Okay? Then the next aspect is your cumulative totals. You have cumulative totals. This was our current data. We are done with it. It gives you the horizontal plot, the bottom horizontal plot. Plotting this with months gives you bottom horizontal plot. But plotting these cumulative totals against months gives you the diagonal plot. This is the diagonal plot I'm talking about. This one. Once you plot all your points, you will have this diagonal plot. And this represents cumulative total. Then lastly, you will plot moving annual totals against months. And once you plot this against your months, at the end of it all, you will have a top horizontal plot. This is your top horizontal plot. From the starting, this is from January to December. So at the end of it all, you realize that you have your graph, which is like in Z shape. This is like Z. You get? Don't mind about this having this one. This one, it is telling you that here we had actually a sharp increase. But actually this is your bottom horizontal plot, which indicated your current data. This is your cumulative total. This is your top horizontal plot, moving annual totals. So you just need to label. You indicate that this is your, put here a line, you indicate that this is your cumulative total. Then also put a line here to indicate that this is your moving annual total. Then also put a line just to name. You're naming this line to indicate that this indicates the current data for 2020. But of course, as you plot, colleagues, you will need a scale on vertical axis. You just look at your data. All you need is to make sure that the vertical axis, the scale you come up with, includes this highest figure. And it also must include the lowest figure. Lowest figure, you get the lowest figure based on your current data. You observe on your current data, ask yourself what is the lowest figure. Then come up with a suitable scale to make sure that as you plot, all these figures you have can fit. Are we together? So you have to come up with a suitable scale. And most of times, I believe that is not a challenge, okay? So my scale on vertical axis, 1 centimeter, is representing 100 vehicles. 1 centimeter is the same as 5 small square units. If you count on your graph, this 5 small square units is equal to 1 centimeter. So someone can say my vertical axis 1 centimeter represents 100 vehicles, or 5 units represent 100 vehicles, or 1 unit represent 20 vehicles. 1 small unit on vertical axis represents 20 vehicles. What about on horizontal axis? On horizontal axis, you're marking after every 1 centimeter. 1 centimeter, 1 centimeter is representing 1 centimeter is representing what? 1 man. Or another person can say 5 units, 5 small units represent 5 small units represent 1 man. And that's all. So colleagues, that's how you can come up with Z chart. Of course, you don't need to forget the title. You have to put that this is Z chart. These figures you're plotting on vertical axis, you see on our question, you always need to know what you're dealing with. What is the variable? They are telling you that the figures show the monthly number of new vehicles registered by URA. So it means that those figures you're plotting on vertical axis are actually the number of new vehicles registered. Are we together? So that's why you see I have number of vehicles. And I believe if you use that knowledge, you will be in a position to answer any other question about Z chart. So in your free time, you can try out this question. Stay blessed.